I just want to talk about how I find it odd that since last March in 2025, Pippa did an interview for a magazine, and the interviewer questioned her as to why she'd gone on holiday whilst her sister was supposedly in hospital. And Pippa obviously got on and thought, excuse me. And she said, well, Kate wasn't ill in the traditional sense. And someone said, well, what's more traditionally ill than cancer? And someone said, obviously it sounds more like a mental health issue, like a nervous breakdown. And after she said that, they published it. But then as soon as people started realising what Pippa had said, the magazine took it off and they changed it to a different answer. And then in the end, they took the whole article off. So no one can find it now. But ever since she said that, Pippa hasn't been seen out with Kate. She hasn't been at the Royal Ascot. She never went to Wimbledon with her. She never went to the Carol concert. And apparently she went out for lunch with Kate for her birthday. I don't think so. But it's done. So, like, people assume, oh, well, it can't be true what Pippa said because, look, she went out for lunch with Kate and her mother. But that's what the press want you to think. But I just find it weird how as soon as Pippa said, well, she wasn't ill in the traditional sense, that we've never seen her again with Kate. And obviously it's true. And Kate obviously said, what the hell were you thinking saying that? People are going to start questioning now why you said it. But it's true. Pippa doesn't want to be known as a liar. If it did come out, perhaps she thought it would come out and thought, well, I'm not going to lie. I know my sister wasn't in the London clinic having surgery. She knew she was at a mental hospital because she'd had a nervous breakdown over William's infidelity and all his cheating and his mistresses. And I bet Pippa thought, well, you're criticising me for going on holiday when you said I should be at home watching over my sister when she's in surgery, yet she was never ill. That's why she said it. It's almost like she thought, don't judge me for going on holiday. There was nothing I could do for Kate. She was in a nut house. No one could see her. Because someone said, isn't it strange that the children and her family never went to see her, just William? And someone said she wasn't in the right state of mind, Kate. Her head was all over the place. She was crazy, like a mad hatter. She was mentally unstable. She'd gone crazy. And someone said that explains why no one was able to see her, because she wasn't in the fit state to. But obviously it's true what Pippa said, because there's been no interaction between them. Last year was completely no contact from either of them, no photos together, no outings together. And I noticed that James Middleton and his wife took Pippa's place at the Ascot. So obviously, again, they're trying to cover something up. And I bet they said to her, why did you say that about your sister not being ill in the traditional sense? But Pippa knows it's true. She knows that Kate never had cancer. She knew it was a mental breakdown. And she said, well, look, this explains why I went on holiday. My sister was in a mental institution. I couldn't do anything to help her. The family weren't allowed to see her because she'd gone nutty. And this is why they took the story off, because, again, it debunks the cancer story. Well, if she'd have had surgery and she's having cancer, why is she on holiday? But the reason why Pippa was on holiday, because she didn't have cancer. She was mad. She'd gone mad. Went to a special psychiatric clinic. The family couldn't see her and they had to pretend it was cancer. And that's why her sister was on holiday. It explains it, because what sister would go on holiday if your other sister was having cancer treatment and surgery? You wouldn't. But it just backs up and it just shows that Pippa is telling the truth. She only went on holiday because she knew she couldn't help Kate. She was mentally unwell. She was ill. Her brain wasn't in the right state of mind to have visitors or anyone. And they said, look, you can't do anything. You might as well go on holiday. And when the journalist asked her that, she replied with that answer. And I'm glad she said it, because she wants to be honest, Pippa. She's not going to make out, oh, well, yes, my sister did have cancer. But she didn't. She said, look, she wasn't ill in the traditional sense. And someone said, well, what's more traditionally ill than cancer? Because someone else said that. They said, nothing's worse than cancer. And everyone started saying, well, it sounds mental. It sounds more like her head than her body. Her brain had gone loopy, and obviously I think most women would go mad if they knew their husband was sleeping about with other people. And I did notice that last year when she went back to her supposed engagements, it was the beginning week, and the BAFTAs were on the Sunday, and a story came out. It was the Daily Mail, and it said about how William likes to blow off steam, and it had Rose Hambury and 3 other different women, and everyone was talking about it. They kept the story on, but it obviously was true because Kate never went to the BAFTAs, neither did William, even though it was announced that they were going, and Kate had a dress lined up to wear. But because that story came out about William being unfaithful and he had different mistresses on the side, she didn't want to go with him. And it just backs up again what Pippa said. She wasn't ill in the traditional sense. It was mental. And obviously her brain had gone a bit nutty again after reading that article from the Daily Mail. I mean, it just categorically clarifies what Pippa said. And no one spoke about it again. The press never commented on it again, which I find a bit strange. So obviously there was something going on. And they made an excuse for William, saying he was busy, but they never made an excuse for Kate. So that was a bit fishy. But yeah, Pippa knows that her sister never had cancer, and hence why she replied as the way she did to the journalist, because she thought, well, I know what happened to my sister. I know what's wrong with her. It's not cancer. She had a nervous breakdown, and I'm not going to be known as a well-known liar. So if I say what really happened, then it can't come back on me as being a liar. That's it. I don't blame her. If that was me, if that was my sister, I'd tell the truth, because it's nothing worse than being called a liar. And she just wanted to get the actual truth across, because I bet she didn't actually like the pretense of what the royal family were doing. I bet she thought, what's the monarchy doing? Why are the institution lying about it? But they have to try and save the crown's image, so hence why. But obviously when the men in the grey suits saw that interview and saw Pippa's answer, they thought, right, that's got to come off now, because that's going to completely twist the story round, and it's going to prove that it wasn't cancer. It was a mental illness. That's it.